The economics of the modern world can be challenging, to say the least. Things can be simultaneously the best they've ever been, which pushes people to maintain the current course, and yet for others it can be the worst thing in the world, which is why they absolutely want to change everything. And everyone wants to keep everyone on the right path, but all that they know how to do is help people the only way that they personally know how. And so they'll tell you, go to school. They'll tell you to get a medical license. They'll tell you to do all of these different things. And this is not just the old classic ways of doing things. Every business has some kind of technique that they're out there selling and sharing on the side, and it worked for them. Everyone on YouTube is going to have a different piece of advice of how to build followers and how to do this and how to do that. But there's one thing that you're not going to find very often. And I think it's something that's so deeply ingrained in us, so deeply understood, that we are telling everyone this, but doing it so much in our own way that it might help the occasional person, but it doesn't really encompass everything that we're trying to say. Because the best way to make money, the best way to double or triple your income is simply to be yourself. And I know that sounds mind-boggling, because here you are being you, and yet you're not making the money. But there are certain things that being you has to entail in order for this to work. And so I would encourage everyone to look through this video, to see these steps, and to sit back and to try and figure out where in their story, where in their lives, in their memories, that this clicks for them. Because I want to introduce 5 different concepts to you that make it to where you will realize that the best way to make money is just to be yourself. And the first way to do that is to recognize the problems that you've had. Everyone has problems in their life. Everyone at some point or another has had some kind of issue. And we can take this all the way back to being a baby who couldn't walk, but eventually you learned how to walk. But here's the thing. Everyone has these problems. Everyone does. Which means that as unique as you think that you are, and yes, you are absolutely unique, and we will go over the why in a little bit, but we all share the same problems. Some of those problems are universal, some of them are specific, but very rarely are they so unique that no one else can help us, even if we don't know where to be able to find those answers. And so when you do find those answers, there is a fiscal responsibility there, but also a social one, where you have the ability to help somebody else. So why not? And sure, that doesn't seem as generous when you're adding the transactional side to it, but the world needs that transactional side. So you might as well throw that in there. But you're still giving someone a better solution than they would have on their own. They wouldn't pay you if they had a better way out. So there is a huge generous side to that, but to recognizing your problem. And the example I gave of being able to walk seems so obvious, like, oh, well, yeah, but everyone knows how to walk, except for not everyone does. There are mothers out there who might be concerned that their child isn't walking, and so they might ask for help. There are people with developmental delays. There are people who get injured. And usually we call these physical therapists. And that seems like, oh, well, that requires a lot more. Sure, but the point of this exercise is to say that the things that you thought were obvious may not be so obvious. I mean, I'm sitting here saying the best way to make money is just to be you. This isn't some ploy, this is a realistic situation. So think about the problems that you've solved. Think about the ways that you solved them. And think about, I'm actually pretty good at this. And then that second thought that comes in, well, if I'm good at it, everyone else must be. Get rid of that one. Because that's not true. It's not. Not everyone is good at that. You just haven't seen it because you didn't see the problem. And now you have the ability to help others. Okay, but here's the thing. If everyone has similar-esque problems, then someone else has figured it out, and I just didn't see that, then someone else can solve that problem for someone else. Yes, true, absolutely. But you didn't see that problem being solved by somebody else. So by you putting yourself out there, this is the second tip, is that you putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I know how to solve this problem. You are giving more people more opportunities to get the help that they need solving the problem that they've encountered. And it's not just that, because you didn't get help from someone else solving that problem, or maybe even you did, but you found a new way to solve it. You found something else, something unique that might be better for someone else. So don't just solve the problem the way you would do it. And that might be exactly what somebody needs. But that's not the only thing that might hold somebody back. Thing number 3 that makes making money essentially just a result of who you are is your experience. People want to connect to people who understand. They want to understand. And so your experiences are so unique that it's not just about solving the problem. It's about having someone who you know gets it, who you know won't judge you or laugh at you because they really deeply get it. It's something that can be as simple as getting dumped after an anniversary versus getting dumped beforehand, because one of those may seem so trivial compared to the other that they want something closer to what they have experienced. And your experiences give so much of that. But in order to make sure that you have that, there's a cost to it. And that is the 4th aspect of being yourself. And this is probably the biggest one. It's being open and vulnerable. You don't have to tell everyone every little secret that you have. In fact is that we teach this through branding and storytelling, but metaphor is a great way to approach a story without giving away every detail, without saying exactly who did what, while protecting people, while still getting through to what people need. It is your experiences, your problems, and your solutions that help develop this story. When you connect to somebody, because everyone wants to connect, and that's done through similar emotions, behaviors, beliefs, and values. Sure, heartbreak is hard, and getting over that is hard. But when you look for someone to help you get over that, are you going to look for someone who has been married for 30 years, or maybe someone who just recently entered into a stable relationship after a bad heartbreak? There's a recent experience to that makes you feel so much more connected, so much more heard. There's obviously a need for professional experience, but there's a closeness to that connection, to someone being able to sit back and say, I know how you felt because this has been me, but I figured out a way through. And that leads us to the last step. And this is passion, because your passion is going to help drive you to push things further. When we talk about brand narrative, we talk about connection through the emotion, behavior, belief, and value, but we also talk about communication, about how understanding the deep emotional needs, not just the physical wants that people have, but the deep emotional needs that create those physical wants, how those are driven and held back by conflict, and yet you have the ability to pull them from the conflict and put them in connection with the right people who will give the value to their lives that'll light it up, that'll add so much positivity to who they are. We teach that, but in order for someone to really know, so many people go to work and they're really good at what they do, but they're not passionate about it. So they go in, they do what they're supposed to do, they go home and they do something else that they enjoy. And that's an acceptable way to live, but it's definitely not the best way to live. This is part of what I teach this. I know what it's like to go to work, to hate your job, and to want to do something else. And I'm not necessarily teaching how to do something else. I'm teaching how to be yourself and how to understand your story and use that to connect and communicate with others. But the key aspect here is that when you are passionate about what you are doing, you don't just do the thing you're supposed to do. You figure out why. You break it down. You add more to it. For me, I was deeply passionate about story because I deeply wanted those connections and that communication. But when you walk away from all of that, I was able to step back and say, I'm so passionate about story that I figured out a new structure. I figured out how to take things apart and put them back together in a unique way. Other people who are just as passionate about story find new ways to implement it through new mediums, through new tools within that medium. There are so many unique and fascinating ways to do things. It is your passion that allows you to take your story and do more with it, or even expand on it. But that's the thing to remember. When I say you can make so much more money just by being yourself, it's about understanding who you are, about understanding your story, about communicating that story to yourself and to others, and then to allow that to give you something to grab onto as you're pulling yourself up. Because the most important asset that you have when you are trying to develop a business is you.